Hi team, today we are looking at an aspect of biomechanics called phases of movement. An understanding of this topic is crucial when considering analysing our performance in squash, which we'll be doing in the coming weeks during our practical squash unit. Most movements used in sporting activity can be broken down into distinct parts known as phases. By looking at these individual phases, this allows us for more accurate analysis of sporting technique. Now, looking at this picture of a baseball pitch, how many phases do you think there are? Can you name them? To give you a clue, there are three phases of movement which I'll indicate now, and they can be separated here and here. Any idea what they're called? If you guessed preparation, contact and follow through, then you are correct. So certain events need to happen during each of these phases. During the preparation phase, movements are made in preparation of skill execution to improve force and accuracy. The contact phase is where the skill is executed, and that can also be known as the action or execution phase. And follow through refers to the movements that are made following the contact phase. As mentioned earlier, the phases of learning allow us to break movements down into distinct parts to really get to the nitty-gritty of movement analysis. The preparation phase allows us to look at different aspects a lot closer. With grip, we can look at close grip versus wide grip, double-handed versus single-handed, short versus long. Stance allows us to look at front versus side arm, allows us to look at agonist and antagonistic function of the muscles. With body position or footwork, we can look at the forward versus backward step, front versus rear foot, large versus small steps. And then with backswing, we can look at low versus high or short versus long. The same thing with the contact phase. Weight transfer allows us to look at body weight and how movement is transferred into the skill. Forward swing is where we look at body segments and how they're swung into the point of impact or release. While strike and release considers how body segments are timed and positioned for the movement, for the moment of impact or release. And finally, during follow-through, targeting allows us to look at body segments and how they're directed towards a target to improve accuracy. Power ensures or looks at acceleration and deceleration during the action phase, improving power and accuracy. And then safety considers how body segments are able to slow down after contact, which help to decrease the chance of injury. When you put all of these factors together, it allows you to briefly break down a skill using simple observations for analysis. Eventually you'll be able to include a range of biomechanical factors when analysing a skill also. The following footage uses the factors discussed during this presentation to break down a tennis backhand shot. It is expected that you'll be able to do the same analysis of a skill during our Period 2 class this coming Friday. So please make sure you've got a sound understanding of each phase and what factors need to be looked at during each phase. Okay, as mentioned on previous slides, the preparation phase allows us to look at four different factors here. The first one we're going to look at is grip, and that's indicated just here is what we're looking at. And as you can see, if we go back and forth a little bit, she has a double-handed grip with her hands close together. One is an overhand grip and the other hand is an underhand grip at the end of the racket. And what this does is it improves the stability and control of the racket. The second thing we can look at is her stance. Okay, her stance as she moves into the shot, you can see is side on. So her torso is rotated away from the ball, which allows her to open her body up as she comes through for the backhand drive. The third thing we can look at is body position. Alright, now we go step it back a bit. You look at this foot here closest to the ball. Alright, she brings it in, steps it forward, to meet the ball, and what this does for her is it gives her stability and balance during the shot, which is really important. The last thing we can look at in the preparation phase is her backswing. And you'll see that her racket is drawn backwards. It starts quite high, starts low, and she brings it up around about shoulder height before bringing it downwards with bent arms to strike at the ball. And you can do a backhand with locked elbows or bent elbows. This just ensures that her arms are in a strong position to swing the racket into the ball forcefully. Just like that. The second phase for us to look at is the contact or action phase, and the first thing we're going to look at there is weight transfer. Now if you have a look at this athlete going into a backhand, you'll see that her body weight is transferred forwards into the direction of the shot being played. Now we move this forward, you can see that her weight is now on her back foot, and as she steps into the ball, she's transferring all her body weight forward into the shot. Second thing we can look at is her forward swing as she comes to meet the ball, and that's again looking at this area here, this racket, and what's happening with her swing. So the ball needs to be struck at about waist height and out to the side of the body, and if you look at this here, you can see the ball is probably slightly above waist height for her, but that's alright. By hitting the ball at waist height and out to the side of the body, it allows the racket head to swing through the transverse axis over the ball. And the last thing we can look at is the strike or the release. In this instance it's the strike because it's a tennis shot. So the racket swings forward to contact the ball out in front of the body. So we probably can't see too well from this angle. Maybe if we go back a little bit, this might give us a better indication. So you can see here contact has been made with the ball out in front of the body. So the last phase we can look at here is the follow through phase. And there's a few things we identified that we can consider. The first one is targeting. So you look here as she comes through and brings the racket over and behind her, sitting above her shoulders, you can see that her torso rotates to face the direction that she would like the ball to travel. Right, so this helps improve her accuracy. Looking at power, you can see that the racket head is drawn upwards over the top of the ball, and that allows topspin and power to be imparted to the ball before she comes through and finishes with the racket over her shoulder. And the last thing we discussed about here is safety. So when hitting a tennis ball in this situation, you don't just want to stop here because it puts a lot of stress on your shoulders. So as she brings the racket over her shoulder, it serves to decelerate the racket and prevents any injuries of the shoulder, and just makes for a more safe movement.